In January, Anthony Todt, 44, confessed to killing his wife Megan, 42, their 3 children, Aleksander, 13, Tyler, 11, Zoe, 4, and also their family dog, Breezy, in their Florida home. He also admitted leaving the bodies there for up to 2 weeks. They had all died by homicidal violence of unspecified means in association with diphenhydramine toxicity. Megan and the 2 sons had been stabbed, and all 4 had high levels of the drug in their system. He is facing 4 charges of first-degree murder and also one of animal cruelty. State Attorney for Florida, Aramis Ayala, is seeking the death penalty in this case. Anthony is currently in the Osceola County Jail awaiting trial, and by the sounds of things is already plotting his defence. In a 27-page letter written to his father Robert, Tony is now clearly trying to pin the blame on his deceased wife, saying that she drugged the children with a combination of Tylenol PM and Benadryl, then stabbed them before taking her own life right in front of him. He is denying any wrongdoing and claims not to have been at the house at that time, the night the children were killed. Now, these new claims could indicate the direction in which Tony's defence team are going to take ahead of the trial. According to Tony, they are some of the best attorneys in the state. I don't quite know where he's going to get the money to pay for them, unless they are public defenders. Now, there are a couple of factors that you need to know before I read Tony's letter. Firstly, when he talks about an incident in 1980 involving his father, Robert, he is talking about this. Robert was actually involved in a murder-to-hire plot. Tony was 4 years old at the time when he told a detective that he heard his mother scream and saw a man wrestling with her on a bed. That was the night his mum, Loretta, was shot in the face, March 19th, 1980. While Robert Todt was out the house, an individual entered and shot Loretta. Although the bullet fire destroyed her left eye and remains lodged in her skull, Loretta Todt survived the attack. Robert, a special education teacher at a Pennsylvania high school, would later be convicted of hiring a former student to pull the trigger. At that time, he was also having an affair. The convicted triggerman was John Chermont. John was 20 years old when he pleaded guilty to shooting Loretta Todt as part of the plot orchestrated by her husband. John cut a deal to testify against Robert, so he only got 4 years, whereas Robert ended up with a conviction and prison term of 10 to 20 years on attempted murder, criminal solicitation and conspiracy charges. By 1981, Loretta had filed for divorce, and by 1984 she'd remarried. According to old articles, though, she had once passionately defended her husband, even after he was accused in the plot. Also, the state Supreme Court ruled that the initial sentence was excessive, so Robert was resentenced to 5 to 10 years. It also needs to be known, in addition to financial difficulties that Tony found himself in, he was also being watched and closed in on by the FBI for allegations of healthcare fraud dating back to 2016-17. Tony and his wife Megan were both licensed physical therapists, and Tony had 2 practices in Colchester, Connecticut. In 2017, they sold their home in Colchester and moved to Celebration, Florida, originally living in a condo, but in May 2019 they moved into their new home on Reserve Place. However, they were facing eviction due to continuing missed payments on the mortgage, as Tony would fly to and from Connecticut during the week to continue his medical practice. The FBI alleges that he was engaged in a health care fraud scheme involving the submission of fraudulent claims for physiotherapy sessions to the Connecticut Medicaid program and to private health insurance plans, sessions that had never actually taken place and had been falsified onto patient records. This allegedly involved tens of thousands of dollars. Federal investigators executed search warrants at Tony's practice locations on November 21st last year, at which time they seized electronic devices, paper records and patient files. Tony was interviewed and said he was the only person responsible for billing for the practice, and he allegedly admitted to submitting the fraudulent claims to keep pace with payments on personal loans that he had obtained. When questioned as to the motivation for committing this fraudulent scheme, Tony stated that he started borrowing money from lenders because it was easier. When asked if he and his family were living above their means, Tote said that's the best way to put it. He also told the investigators his wife was unaware of his actions and stated that he wanted to plead guilty. He said he was seeking an attorney and would return to Connecticut on the week of December 8th, but he never showed up. The Florida police were first called to perform a welfare check at the family's home in Celebration on December 29th by a concerned family member back in Connecticut who hadn't been able to get hold of anyone in a few days after being told that they all had the flu. Officers didn't get a response after knocking the door, but they checked out the outside of the home but did not see anything suspicious. Federal agents then contacted Tony's family in Connecticut on January 7th, at which point a relative told them that she too was worried because she had not been able to reach him. It is believed that the killings took place as authorities in the fraud investigation were closing in on Tony. Tony and his family lived in Florida, but he flew back to Connecticut each week for work. When federal investigators tracked Tony down at his family's home in Florida, January 13th, the decomposing bodies of Tony's wife and his 3 children along with the family dog were found. Tony confessed to killing his family near the end of December, meaning he had actually been staying hidden away and sleeping with their deceased bodies for around 2 weeks. So despite all of these prior confessions, we now have Tony's letter to his father, Robert, which I'll read for you in a second. The writing's truly shocking, and it's taken me days to decipher it all, but it seems pretty clear to me that despite everything that he's put in this letter, Tony was facing huge financial pressures. He was facing eviction from the family home, and of course the FBI were closing in on his alleged healthcare fraud. There can never, of course, be any reason for annihilating your own family, but if you were to look for reasons, that is where, in my opinion, the reasons and the truth lies. This letter sounds simply like a load of convoluted lies, self-pity, self-praise, and an attempt to pin the guilt on his wife, a woman whose life he's taken away. It seems to me these family annihilators, they often have no shame and seem to have no balls to admit what they've done. Hopefully in time, when it goes to court, this whole convoluted story will get shot down in flames, and Tony will spend the rest of his life where he belongs, behind bars. But I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on what Tony's written to his father. The letter is dated June 19th, 2020. Robert, please excuse the impersonal nature of printing in this letter, but seeing as it is too painful to write legible script, it will have to do. I will explain later. I have recently been released off of suicide watch, as I was placed, due to these circumstances, horrific as they were, in December 2019, that the media and Sheriff's Department here are making me out to be the next Butcher of Baghdad. Thanks to counselling here, the chaplain services and my sister, I am beginning to resemble the proud man I was prior to the incident which shattered me beyond comprehensible ways. I remain in isolated protected custody to protect me, as I am not jail material, and to protect my case. I write to you in response to the letters I received from you, to correct all inaccuracies created and generated by the creative writing machine in brackets press, to sell papers and the sheriff's department who want to score a big win after screwing up a prior murder case that the governor of Florida had to intervene and move it out of this district, to respond to your absurd allegations in your last letter, and to offer you forgiveness. First of all, I am 10,000% innocent of all these preposterous charges, both on this state case and on the proposed medical fraud case. The statements taken from me were interesting, to say the least. I'm writing to you in confidence. Please do not share with anyone but your wife, as I need not to be shown off as a trophy again. Nor do I need to contend with the results of the telephone game when it is time to testify in a couple of months. Please do not break my confidence. I am ashamed to say yes, I did attempt suicide multiple times. As to my recollection, I want to say 8 times. I am told this is natural given the circumstances of having the rug pulled out from underneath me and my world shattered. My wife and my children were and still are everything to me. I love my wife still very deeply, and it will be the hardest thing to sit there and tell everyone that it was her that did this when I was not home, and then she committed suicide in front of me. I have forgiven her, as I know she was chronically sick since 2011-2012, when a bug bit her in Disney of all places. That, with time and everything else, led to our first miscarriage of Avery Nicole, borderline liver failure, drug-induced hepatitis. ELFTs were 3,800 / 3,825. Normal is 25. Vagus nerve dysfunction, depression, in addition to that suffered from her father's suicide, one of my close friends in 2002-2003. Tachycardia, would wake up with heart rate in excess of 180. Breathing difficulties at rest, Lyme's disease, chronic pain, joint laxity, weight loss from 125 pounds, muscularly ripped from being an internationally trained yoga teacher, to barely holding on to 90 pounds, with loss of all female features, in addition to a multitude of other physical and functional deficits. We moved to Florida in our condo, originally because the sun and warmth made her feel better, and eventually permanently for that reason. And there were more homeschooling and performing arts opportunities for the boys. We sold the house in Colchester in 2017, after just finishing a greater than 50k remodel that included all new furniture for living room, dining room, kitchen, new kitchen cabinets, new counter, painting all downstairs, new lighting, finishing the basement, ripping up the grout while maintaining the kitchen tile, replacing grout, completing a 16 to 1800 square foot 2-level deck with a hot tub, and replacing the carpet upstairs with engineered hardwood. I essentially did the work by myself, with intermittent help from friends and help from my boys when they would fly back with me. Not even a year after remodel, she decided we should move to Florida full-time and sell the house. Whatever she wanted, I did. I took my vows of love, honour and obey, in brackets protect, as religion and sacred. We then moved into the rental house at 202 Reserve Place in Celebration, because we outgrew our condo in May 2019, and it had a saltwater pool which was good for her, and an office apartment above the detached garage that we could use to transition the business to Florida. We were not able to sell it for what it was worth, hence I commuted every week. When I arrived in Connecticut on Tuesdays, I would work 2 till 9, treating patients, and then in the office doing work until 1 a.m. Returning Wednesday and Thursday in office at 6 a.m. Treating from 6:30 to 9 p.m. and working until 1 a.m. I would stay at a hotel or mum's couch, my choice, on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, or at an Airbnb, and Thursday night usually sleep in the office for a couple of hours, as my flight was between 5 and 6 a.m. So I'll be home in Florida in time to pick Zoe up at preschool at 11:45 a.m. or various other things previous to that. I would catch sleep on plane or wherever time permitted. It was not healthy. I realise that as I have seen recent newspaper pics of me, but I did it all for family. When I was in Florida, I would treat my wife 2 to 3 times a day, usually 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., 9 to 10:30 p.m., and personal training activities to tolerance in afternoons daily. Do food shopping and prepare 90% of the meals. Prepare 2 full meals for when I left for Connecticut so my son could warm up as necessary. Take boys to and from homeschool co-op, 45 minutes away, on Mondays and to co-op on Tuesdays, with sometimes delaying my departure depending on home situation, and bringing them home Tuesday afternoon prior to an evening flight. In addition, Zoe was driven to and from school Monday and Tuesday by me, and home on Fridays by me. The boys were home Wednesday, Thursday and Friday doing their homeschool work, and Meg would drive Zoe to from school 10 minutes on Wednesday, Thursday and on Friday mornings to school. It was a routine I fully accepted. I loved being a husband and a father. In addition, I would attend to whatever personal need Meg needed, depending on the day. That included carrying her upstairs to bed, helping her shower, dress, doing Zoe's hair. I sucked at it, and whatever else. I embraced it. I was determined she was going to get better, and she was. Though the good days were amazing, but the bad days were even more depressing for her. We kept quiet for most part, because that is how Meg wanted it. She was raised that way, as her mum was the town drunk. Her grandfather was a major Democratic politician for over 30 years, and she didn't want the same eyes on her as were on her mother for multiple ailments. I respected it. She was my wife and I loved her. Like I said prior, I am still deeply in love with her. Call that illogical, I don't care. We had a love between us, described best, I think, by C.S. Lewis being storge, a Greek term for family love. It takes the other 3 loves of the Greek language, phileo, friendship, eros, erotic, and apagio, God, to the next level. We didn't fight, rather discussed things, although much wasn't different between us, as we made sure we built a foundation of trust, respect and admiration for and with each other before we married. It was very important to both of us given our pasts, hers from an alcoholic mother and living in silence because of family and political reasons, and mine stemming from 1980, that left serious trust issues, nightmares, fear and fear of people even thinking I had any infidelity issues. We didn't even make love until 1 week prior to our wedding, after almost 8 years of dating. Our relationship was very close and special. Anyways, too much info I'm sure, but I thought you needed a better understanding of our relationship. If I was there that night, this never would have happened, hence the self-blame and self-condemnation. But because I was being selfish, I have lost everything near and dear to me, and when I leave here in a couple of months, I will be leaving homeless and without clothes. I've lost £90 so far. Blue Sky Realty in celebration has formally evicted us from the rental house, where everything is, including furniture, clothes and specialties, remembrances of my family, especially my kids. Most things can be replaced except for the family piano, which was Meg's growing up, and the boys learned on it and Zoe was beginning to learn. It is the most treasured item to me practically in the world. But because I have been evicted, they have the right to sell everything to make up their costs. I understand my only hope is the estate sale is delayed due to the coronavirus, and I'm out of here before it, to settle the lies and take back possession of the material things. I doubt it will happen, but I'm hoping and praying. In reference to the condo, which is furnished and has clothes there, I'm facing foreclosure as the mortgage has not been paid since December. There are some reasons the family hasn't done so, and I do not know the status of my finances, as Meg handled all of that. I hated doing the financial stuff, and had limited time to dedicate to it, as she loved it, and had time and took over full control in 2013-2014. More so because of the guilt she was having from the build-up of medical bills. Most were private pay. I had a gigantic life insurance on myself, but only a 200 to 300k on her. But when I get out, that will help set things right and get on my feet, I guess. It's being held because of the charges against me, as I am sole beneficiary. I just hope timing is right and everything is delayed because of the economy status due to the coronavirus. Here's hoping, I guess. I didn't do the finances and trusted her with that. As a team partnership, I know passwords and usernames as I set up the online account and essentially used the same throughout. Oh well, back to the explanations. I wasn't there that night because I was selfish and wanted a wonderful day, as Meg described it, into a most wonderful day. Meg woke up for the first time since March 2019, and even before, though intermittently without any pain. Instead of me treating her at 4:30 a.m, we spent time together with Zoe, until Zoe came in wanting breakfast. The day was phenomenal. Meg relaxed inside for the most part, joining us outside on occasion, and I spent the day with the kids doing everything from basketball to soccer, to talking, to Elsa freeze tag football, you name it. Meg was inside watching TV, reading recipes, listening to music, resting and making snacks. It was the best I've seen her in a while, especially since our miscarriage in September 2019 of Connor Michael. That was horrible to say the least. He was 8 to 10 weeks gestation. We initially found out at our ultrasound when Zoe was present to see baby Tote for the first time. The tech and radiologist were cold-sounded in their handling of it. We were supposed to have a follow-up ultrasound 2 weeks later, as there was no heartbeat heard or detected. But we lost Connor prior to that. Instead of leaving the ultrasound happy, it was worse than a funeral. The result of our love and the first weekend away was no longer. It was a happy surprise to us to conceive, as we were not trying, but who knew a woman can double ovulate after the age of 40? Never covered that in sex ed or any of my medical classes. Anyways, I would ask her several times throughout the day if she needed anything and if everything was okay, and she would respond, "Everything is wonderful. If you get a chance, can you fix the alarm sensor on the back door, and can you go to the condo to get Zoe's Mickey necklace?" She and I would really appreciate it as she keeps asking me for it. I told her that I would go after dinner if all was okay, as I had some maintenance tasks there, and it would be easier to do without children. She responded perfect, as I want everybody to go to bed early anyways, because everyone is still getting over the stomach bug. I agreed and also told her I would crash at the condo or in the office apartment above the garage. As one, I was a bull in a china closet when I was tired, as I was extremely because of insomnia the night before. And two, she started to use natural oil and an air freshener that was giving me sinus issues since Thanksgiving, and would snore or just have difficulty sleeping. I also told her I would fix the sensor one night after the boys were asleep with Gorilla Glue because Tyler would jump up to touch them and constantly knock them off. He was my energetic and daring son. He wanted me to go skydiving with him on his 18th birthday, and I told him it would have to be his 21st birthday, as I would need a serious drink before and after. Whereas Alec was into cars and wanted me to be his best man at his wedding. Shows the difference between them. He wanted a blue Camaro convertible for his first car, as I rented one for a weekend. But I told him we would start him with a pink Cadillac. He didn't enjoy that. I did, smiley face. Sorry I switched to script. I hope you can read it. It was tedious and painful. You see, when they took me into custody, they dropped me down 10 stairs handcuffed behind my back. Needless to say, after hearing, "That's why we hold on to someone in custody, deputy," I had extreme back pain, shoulder and neck pain, and bilateral hand-wrist pain. I have nerve damage in my left hand, right wrist sprain, right shoulder rotator cuff disruption and lateral tear, left shoulder rotator cuff problem, cervical and lumbar radiculopathy, sacroiliac dysfunction, and daily migraines. I am limited in sitting for about 15 minutes secondary to pain, and standing for 15 to 20 minutes. I take Tylenol 600 milligrams, bed, when the nurses remember, but hesitate to take anything stronger. They gave me a med to help with the nerve pain, so I could sleep, but that gave me freaky Tales from the Crypt nightmares, so they discharged it. So part of my day I do self-PT and keep daily notes. I'm a mess, but mentally healthy and a clean bill of health for the most part, except for orthopedic issues. My hypertension, EKG, thyroid, sugars, CK levels, and cholesterol are all normal now, and pending the results of the blood work, I should be discharged of all my remaining meds next week. I will stay on the low-dose antidepressant until after the trial, by my agreement. I'm 10 to 15 pounds from my ideal weight now, and have the re-emergence of my six-pack that I had playing college soccer. So in that department, all is good or improving. So before dinner, I moved the minivan to the driveway under the basketball hoop, as I needed tools for maintenance. In addition, I asked the boys to load any boxes so I could dispose of them at the appropriate dumpster at the condo. I was also bringing the minivan over to the condo as to bring more stuff back to the house. After dinner, Meg warmed up leftovers and I had a protein shake. The boys said everything was set, and Meg pleaded with me to get the necklace, as Zoe was driving her nuts about it. I drove over to the condo, literally thinking to myself about how wonderful the day was, and how my Zoe was going to light up the room with her smile when I brought back the necklace. Upon parking the van, I went to get the tools out and they were not there. I walked back 5 minutes and found the boys playing basketball. I asked them what happened to the tools. They looked dumbfounded and pointed to them on the base of the basketball hoop. They explained that the doors were locked, so they left them there. Of course, they only checked one door, the hatch. I couldn't be mad at them, as I did the same thing often to my father growing up. Instead, I chased them, wrestled with them, laughed and tickled them. They were great boys, never needed any real discipline, as they were brought up correctly. Every once in a while they needed to be separated, being competitive brothers, but they were wonderful to all, especially their little sister. Their relationship was awesome, and she adored them in every way. The boys asked me to play basketball, and I of course said yes. I always remember a friend of mine doing one of those silly form dances like the electric slide on soccer opening day, and I of course laughed at him, as he really looked foolish. He turned to me and said, "Kids only ask you to do things with them for a short amount of time. Then they stop, and I don't want to have any regrets." I remember that daily, and now I am living it. So we played for a while in spite of being exhausted, and it was starting to get late, so I told them to go inside, and I was going back to the condo with the tools. They said Mum was preparing dessert and I was going to join them. I said no, as I was trying to lose some weight, etc., and I told them to remind Mummy that I was going to sleep at the condo, or the upstairs apartment, and I hugged and kissed them. After walking back to the minivan to get my keys, I sat in the driver's seat and wanted to take a small siesta. I was tired. The snooze button became my best friend until the battery of the iPod drained. I thought I had my phone but was mistaken. Meg could still find me and alert me through the Find My Phone app if she needed me, so I wasn't worried. I woke up with the morning sun and woke up in a panic, not really knowing the time, but knew I missed our 4 to 4:30 a.m. stand-in treatment time and was prepared to receive a scolding, as I would on occasion if I forgot to do something, but this would have been harsher. I tried to start the minivan, but it wouldn't start. Turns out the seat was pushed too far back to fully engage the brake sensor. So I grabbed my tool bag and scurried back to the house, fearful of the scolding. I returned home, put my tools in the garage, and noticed our electric car, Nev, was there. I entered the house to find the melted dessert and remnants on plates on the table. It was some sort of fruit pudding pie in a graham cracker crust. It looked very good, as all my wife's desserts were, but smelled horrible. Turns out it was a Benadryl pudding pie. I didn't realise Tylenol PM or Benadryl liquid could freeze. I went to the bathroom downstairs to pee, newly diagnosed with diabetes 2 that is well under control now, passing the TV that was on ESPN talking about college football. Normal, as Alec and I always had some sort of sports bet. This one was about Joe Burrows from LSU going #1. I thought he would be, in addition to being a Heisman winner, and he thought Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma, Alabama, due to his resume and diversity. If I won, he had to eat a pepperoni pizza. If he won, I had to eat a seafood dish of his choosing, not raw, but he promised there would be a lot of tentacles. He and I were buds, but he always competed against me. I followed the Yankees, so of course he had to be a Red Sox fan, etc. Sorry for the length of this letter, but I thought, since Chrissy brought you into this, I guess they were looking for me, and because you contacted the Hartford Courant for that article, you should be told the details. I would have called a press conference months ago, but I was told by my attorneys, who happen to be some of the best in the state, that was not the appropriate way to handle the case. So I just sat in idle, making a lot of lawsuits when I get out. In addition, I'm writing this letter on recommendation of the chaplain. I'll explain later. Anyways, I came out of bathroom and found Meg at the top of the stairs. I ran to her, ready to explain why I wasn't there. She started tearing and smiling, saying, "You are alive, they didn't get you." I was confused and saw her wearing my grey Hydroworks shirt, and there was a stain on it. I asked what was going on, if the kids reminded her where I was, where were the kids, and if everything was okay. She said the kids were fine and everything was okay now that I was there. She led me into the bedroom and began telling me about her vision she got yesterday while meditating, telling her the end of the world was beginning with virus attack and eventual invasion. I was captured and going to be killed, and she was granted salvation with the boys once their souls were released. Because she was sicker than we all realized, this vision was telling her she would not be strong enough to survive. She had turned more and more spiritual over the last few years for guidance due to her illness. I can write a whole book on it. I didn't really believe in it, but whatever made her feel better, as long as no sacrifices, etc. I supported her. Long story short, she gave them the Benadryl, Tylenol PM pie, separated them, woke up at 11:30, stabbed and then suffocated each one. At the news of this, I ran to the bathroom and puked. I was weak. She continued to tell me what happened and then wanted to pray, meditate together. I needed to see my kids. When I went in, I was horrified. It was peaceful, no signs of struggle, as she said, but I didn't believe her that there wasn't a struggle. I got a warm washcloth and wiped each of their faces, held them, cried and wanted to make them look more comfortable by closing their mouths, eyes and loosening their nasal passages. It was normal for me to wash their faces when they weren't well. Throughout that whole time, Meg kept checking on me, very calmly, asking if I was okay, or drinking something. Turns out the Benadryl she had been stockpiling for a while. I would respond to her, "No, you murdered our children," and she would respond, "Relax and believe in what I saw. I released their souls." She was calm and with it throughout. It still amazes me this day. She had told me earlier she researched this for a while in case it would happen on websites Quora or Quora.com and Reddit.com. When I returned to the bedroom, I demanded the phones as I did not know where they were. She claimed she had hidden them and not to worry but have faith. She gave me an empty, family-sized liquid Benadryl to throw away in the garbage bag she had in the tub, and I took the opportunity to look there for the phones. Upon going back into the bedroom, I heard a horrific sound of something robbing a latex balloon. She had stabbed herself the first time. I ran to her bedside, and she said, "Please don't leave me alone to die, as I didn't leave the kids to die alone. When I pull this knife, it will go quick. I can feel it happening now." Before I could react, the knife was pulled and thrown on the bed someplace. There was blood, a lot of blood. I begged her to let me call in and I would take all responsibility, as I felt it was all my fault. I'll explain. After a while, nothing happened. She had more of her drink and asked me to leave her for a few moments as I was stressing her out with all my pleading of asking her to go for help, where phones were, etc. I took the opportunity to look in the boys' room for a phone in their hiding spaces. I couldn't go to the neighbours as one, I would violate the agreement of not leaving her alone. Irrational, I know. 2, where we lived, neighbours were never home due to work or mostly snowboarding. I heard the shower on, toilet flush, and sink running. Somehow she was up. When I returned to the bedroom, she again was pounding another family-sized liquid Benadryl and gave me the empty bottle to throw away. I took the opportunity to look for the phones again, and I asked where all this Benadryl was, and she said in the linen closet, a place I never went, and I looked there also. No phones. As I went back to the bedroom, I saw Meg on the bed, holding the knife still on her abdomen, saying this one is out of... This next word I couldn't decipher. As she pushed the knife into her liver, she pulled it out and dropped it on the bed as I ran to her. I said, "Let me get help. I will take all responsibility for this. My mother, father, sisters, and your grandparents will take care of you." She responded, "I have to be with my babies. Please pray Grandma doesn't find out I killed the kids. It will kill her." Her grandmother was very, very close to me, and I knew this also, especially with the troubled family history on that side of the family. She then put my hand on a pillow that she had put on her face and said, "Please help me pass. I'm in pain 10 times greater than childbirth, and I can't breathe." I said I couldn't, and she pleaded and pulled my hand on her face. I couldn't watch and just left it there. Many moments later, she began hitting my arm, pulling it harder on her face, and then pushing it away as she was saying something. I thought she had changed her mind. Nope. She said, "I finally found something you suck at. I can still breathe." I told her I couldn't do it, and she pleaded. I started praying for the strength and the balls to do it. She died before I could help her. I couldn't do it. Moments later, she began breathing. I now know reflex. And I said, "I'll ask for forgiveness later," and tried CPR until I physically couldn't any more. This was the final act of my chapter of failures. I failed as a father. I wasn't there to protect my children. The thing I blame you the most for, and I'm no better. I failed as a husband. I wasn't able to fix Meg or find someone that could, and I wasn't able to succeed in CPR administration. 3 times previous I was successful on patients, but the person that means the most to me I failed on. I wanted to die to be with my family, and also I felt I didn't deserve to live. After I cleaned up the kitchen, per request of Meg, I moved the children into our room, onto their mattresses in comfortable sleeping positions with a pillow, covered them for warmth and protection, and put a rosary in each one of their hands. I put Zoe on the bed with us. I wanted to die and I wanted my family together, not spread throughout the house. From there I have little memory. Basically I remember all the suicide attempts, yet another thing I sucked at, and puking up cheese, Benadryl and Gwalumki stuffed cabbage as I thought was a sign from Meg. Supposedly I had phone calls with people, text arguments with people. My family was looking for me, amongst other things. I'm ashamed, and I ask for forgiveness and understanding from all. Other facts. After I was left to fall down the stairs, I was assisted the rest of the way to the bottom, where I encountered 3 voices. 1, we were looking to drop the charges, but we have to deal with this now. FBI. 2nd, we have a pod waiting for you with 4 other guys just like you. Police, and I didn't know what a pod was until March. And 3rd, which I thought was a UPS man, why didn't you answer the door when we were knocking? The last suicide attempt, I took 4 times the toxic dose of Benadryl a lot on Sunday, January 12th evening. How Benadryl works is it slows the body down, thus slowing the metabolism of it. As anything that raises the heart rate happens, the more is metabolized, hence the sparse memory. At hospital, I was, again a decipherable word, I was something acted and deemed not able to sign intake paperwork, but somehow I could waive my rights 1 hour after. I was in need of a guardian to sign my discharge paperwork, but was able to sign away my Miranda rights 1 hour later. The interrogation was timed greater than 3 hours, but only 1 hour was recorded. I asked for my attorney at hospital when asked. Someone showed up and said to answer the questions asked, and he said he would meet up with me after D/C. My 2 interviews are conflicting with each other and conflicted with medical examiner autopsy's report that was done in between. The officer states this is in his DD5 that he called the medical examiner prior to the 2nd interview, saying the report and my testimony did not show up. The 2nd was more about my attempts than anything. I stated that I wanted to kill myself right then during my 2nd interview, and yet somehow sound mind. First interview I told them Megan's failed, committed suicide in 2002-2003, but somehow they came down to arrest after again this is illegible word, in 2019. We didn't deal with her mother, same 2007. The medical fraud was and is bullshit. After I read the paperwork when they left, I found out the time frame was when Meg took over the billing. I told her not to worry when I saw her Friday night, and I would keep her name out of it, as they were only talking probation at worst. I didn't know the scope of billing mistakes, as my attorney said to not discuss it. Also, the FBI had red flags because they found out I travelled out on days I wasn't there. Patients were billed under me. That was the way the billing company set it up. All the therapists were credentialed, but we billed as a group and I owned the group. In addition, they were insinuating some sort of money laundering scheme, because no one does as much community service as you report. I told them to stick it up their asses because I actually did more anonymously, like donations to charities and help people with their rent, etc. I was supposed to meet with the attorney the Wednesday after Thanksgiving and return to Florida for an early Thursday morning MD appointment for Meg that was long awaited. I woke up Sunday morning to the smell of burning. It was Meg burning journal entries she had written about her aunt and uncle, and she didn't want them to read them, and she was saying the world was going to end and she was going to die, etc. I cancelled going back to Connecticut that week because of red flags and kept her under watch until we were to go to the MD appointment Thursday. I found out 11:30 p.m. Wednesday night that she had already cancelled the appointment earlier in the week because she didn't want meds and no one could help. I then asked her to call one of the MDs in Gainesville, as we already moved Christmas to coincide with Tylee's birthday because of sickness, and we could visit a temple in Gainesville she wanted to go to as we were heading there for Tylee's birthday dinner. I only remembered about the investigation of medical fraud when they showed me the newspaper article you called The Current about. That was shown to me in March. It was the first time I learned that I was facing 1 to 2 years in jail if convicted. I was allowed to open fly to Florida and kept in contact with them over the phone. It was when I went silent because of the suicide attempt that they decided to come get me. I was described as psychotic on my arrival at jail by the head of mental health counselling, and I do not remember most of hospital time, none of the police station visit, or the first 5 to 7 days here in jail. Yet somehow I was competent to give statements, ? My attorneys made mincemeat of the prosecutor in our first pre-trial last week, and now they are going after suppression of the statement. We have been limited due to coronavirus. They have scheduled pre-trial for 12th of the 10th, 2020, and trial for January. But my attorneys are going to move it up to October once they figure out how jury selection is going to work because of corona. The main motive the prosecution is using is financial, and I just gave up. All BS. Meg took care of finances, and all I know is they were good. We had credit card debt that was budgeted and planned to be paid off from January 2020 to June 2020, and we had 2 business loans that were to be paid off in the beginning of January and March. Other than that, we had the mortgage for condo at Wells Fargo. I only know username and password Meg handled. The house rental we were evicted from for not paying December and January, obviously. Office rent, the same as the house rental and payroll. To my understanding, all was paid through December. I didn't micromanage her. I trusted her even if we had financial problems. I have family that would help, and I wasn't opposed to working harder. I had to do so to finish paying college, as my father lost his job. I never worried about that. I just worked harder and more. We had just invested money into rebuilding our website and marketing, and were succeeding, and in less than a month we had record new scheduled, and the new staff I hired was full. I cancelled going back that first week, as I told you, and then cancelled the following week for the same, to tend to family. I was giving my scheduler a heart attack. I was off the last half of December already for the holiday and felt secure as our A/R was over 250k. No worries from what I knew, different from anyone else. I hope that short letter answers most of questions, as it is just a summary, believe it or not. We had an amazing marriage, only hampered by her sickness, that I accepted with open arms as I was determined to find a cure for her. Anyways, I sit here in protective, isolated custody to protect my case and also for protection, as they say I'm not jail material. Writing, reading, self-PT, calling my sister and Uncle Martin, outlining my next book and doing a framework of a non-profit I am starting in memory of my family. MATZB 2019. Alive and at peace. Dedicated to providing resources and services to the chronically ill, not just heart disease and cancer. I also work my case daily. I'm looking forward to going home, whatever form and wherever that will be. I know I need to work on the name. So another reason I wrote is to offer forgiveness to you and extend a fragile olive branch. I don't know what kind of relationship I want with you, or any, time will tell. I offer you forgiveness for not being there to protect us that night, March 19th, 1980. Although we were both not there on respective nights in question for different reasons, I cannot forgive myself if I don't first forgive you. The happenings of that night in 1980 are not mine to forgive, as I really don't know what happened and don't really care at this point. I haven't dealt with you because I had my independent views formed by myself, as I am allowed to as an adult, about the person you were and how I was shown off at the funeral of Aunt somebody as a trophy, despite telling you I didn't wish to be ahead of time. I also thought you were a pompous, narcissistic ass, and I didn't want to have a relationship with you. There it was said. I am extending the fragile olive branch, and we will see. Don't burn it this time. This is between you and I, that is all. Do not share any info with Uncle Martin, Chrissy, or anyone else except Danielle, not even that I wrote to you. I'm going to close for now, as I am in extreme pain and I'm sure you are tired of reading. Please, if you correspond, watch what you write as they scan and send the news and prosecutor all my mail. Tony. P.S. The boys performed in Nashville, July 2019. I uploaded their performance and a recital to YouTube. If you want to see them on YouTube, search Alec Todt and separately Tyler Tote. They were amazing.